I'm going to haul out my old Teac V850X 3-head cassette deck with Dolby BC and DBX, and we're going to check it out with 4 different tapes: normal bias, high bias, Type 3 ferrochrome, and metal tape, and see which one has the best sound. Check this one out. Hi guys, I think I gotta show you guys my nice old classic Teac V850X. This is a stereo cassette deck from the 1980s. It was very expensive. I forget how much I paid for this. It was between $800 and $1,000 I think when I bought it. It was a lot of money. Bought it at a place called Crazy Crazy, and anybody from the Vancouver area in the 80s would remember Crazy Crazy. They would advertise stuff, you know, at ridiculously low prices to get you in the door. I'm just gonna move this off here just so you guys can see how good this unit is, because it's actually in really good shape. Very good condition. And I'm going to use this little CD player just to play stuff, but you know, this machine's actually in really good shape. This is my own personal deck. I've had it since it was new. I don't use it that much these days. I use it mostly for playback because I do have some mixed tapes that I made back in the 80s. And this has got DBX on it, which I used to use DBX a lot, so I hang on to this deck and restored it. I guess about 4 or 5 years ago, I replaced the belt that had turned to goo. And I just want to see how it's still performing. The last time I had it up on the bench, I didn't put it on a frequency counter or anything to check the speed. I just kind of did a calibration by ear, and we'll see how accurate my ears are. And we'll put a tone on here and see how accurate my ears were when I set it up. Because, well, I didn't even have to adjust it. It was good. So let's just throw a tone on here and take a gander at the speed. So as you can hear, I'm hearing a little bit of flutter in there. This thing hasn't had a lot of use lately. So my belt that's been in there for 5 years is probably starting to get a bit of a soft spot because it hasn't had a lot of use in the last couple of years. I don't use this unit a lot. I use it again mainly for playback, and because it's a belt drive unit, it's been sitting for a bit, so that belt itself is probably starting to get just a little bit sloppy because it hasn't had a lot of use. Although that will, if I leave it running for a while, that'll probably settle down a bit as it runs for a little while here, because most belts, if they sit in one spot for a while, they tend to get almost an indentation in them where they're sitting on the pulley, and then every time the belt goes around, there's a slight wobble in the speed. But if it gets run for a bit, it's going to improve substantially. So I wouldn't read into that little bit of wow that we hear and a little bit of flutter, because that's going to improve greatly as the unit runs. But again, I'm not using this deck to make recordings. I just use it for playback. The deck that I actually do use for my making like alignment tapes, for example, I'm using a Technique's RSM 275, which is a direct drive quartz lock that has been certified with a factory alignment tape, and it is absolutely perfect, and the wow and flutter on that thing is almost undetectable because being a direct drive, it's very accurate. There's no belts or anything to get a bit sloppy, so it's very, very good. Anyway, what I wanted to show on this one here today was I don't need to do any repairs on this because this thing is in good shape, but I just wanted to go through. We're going to play around with one of these Sony ferrochrome Type 3 tapes. This is a brand new tape. This is an old stock. This is the Type 3 cassette, and the neat thing about Type 3, as you can see here, is that it records at a standard bias. And you notice here it says position to use is Type 3 ferrochrome or Type 1 normal. Now, what makes the ferrochrome tape so unique, if we take a look at the actual tape itself, this is a treat for those of you that have never seen one of these. I'm just going to pull a little bit of this tape out here so you guys can see it. For those of you unfamiliar with the ferrochrome tape, take a look at the tape itself. if we look at the recording surface of the tape, it's black because this is chromium dioxide. The back of the tape is brown because it's ferric oxide, as in the term ferrochrome. It's ferric oxide with chrome on top. That gives this tape the benefit of both formats, both tape types. You see, the original chromium dioxide tape that Memorex invented was very good at producing mids and highs. It did a very good job of mids and highs. But chromium dioxide wasn't really great on the bottom end. The good old type 1 ferric oxide tape was much better at the lower bass frequencies, because bass has a tendency to penetrate the tape to a deeper layer of the oxide, whereas the treble frequencies tend to ride along the surface. They put two coatings on the tape. They put a coating of ferric oxide on the base of the tape because the bass frequencies tend to penetrate the tape, and then they put a coating of chromium dioxide on the surface to allow the higher frequencies to ride on the surface, and made a unique tape. They called it Type 3. A Type 3 tape, because it does have more high frequencies available to it, you equalize it as a Type 2 tape on playback. You don't have to, but your high frequency will tend to be a little more emphasized if you play it back as a Type 1, but you certainly can play it as a Type 1 tape. You record it as a normal tape because it doesn't need any extra bias. The standard bias will penetrate down into the deeper layers of the tape and record your bass very well. Chromium dioxide tape required a higher bias because the chrome was a little thicker coating, and then of course chromium dioxide actually got replaced by cobalt because the real chromium dioxide tapes were kind of hard on the heads. And of course metal, well, that was metal particle tape, and that requires the Type 4 position, but that's another story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind this tape back in here, and we're going to set this up. So on the 850, you do is you enter the record pause mode and then hit that manual button, and that puts it into a tone generating mode. And now I'm just going to set the levels up. I'm trying to get the levels balanced between the left and the right. So I set the first one. Now I'm going to do the right channel, and I'm just going to try and get the levels set the same. And you do the level first, and then you do the bias. Every time you press the manual button, it'll advance over. So left channel level, right channel level, left channel bias, right channel bias. And once you get the settings correct, then you press the stop button, and it'll save those settings. And at that point, then I can save it into one of the two memories. The two memories on there, you can have two settings for two normal tapes, two chrome tapes, and two metal tapes. Although because the ferrochrome is detected as a metal or as a standard bias, I'm going to set memory 1 for ferrochrome. I'll set memory 2 for standard Type 1 tapes, and then I'll do a bias setting for a chrome tape and for a metal tape, so that we can compare all 4 different types of tapes and see how they perform. So I'm just going through setting it up, just trying to get the levels about the same on both here. And once I get the levels set up, we'll do a recording. So we got our levels equal and our bias equal. So I want to save this. So I hit memory, and then I hit, I think, memo 1, or hit memory and then memo 1. I forget how to do this. I have to stop it, I think. And I hit memory 1, memory, and then 1. Okay, now I've just stored it into memo 1. So you get your reference, and then you can set your memos. So I've got memory 1 set. So I've now biased the record oscillator, or the record bias, and the levels. So I've zeroed everything out. So as you saw, what I do is press the manual button and adjust the levels up and down to get to 0, and do the same for the right channel, bias and level, so that they're all equaled out here. I'm going to make a recording on here, and I just tried a test recording on this thing, and the old Type 3 tape isn't living up to the expectations that it used to, probably because this tape is so old. and even though it hasn't been used, it's been sitting around for an awful long time. I do have a couple of other tapes, so we're going to try in this deck too. One of them is a Sony. This is Sony. It says Maxell. This is wrong. It's the wrong case. It's a Sony high bias UX tape. This tape's seen better days. It's got a nice crease in it because it's been used a lot, but I bet you it's going to perform still pretty good. Another tape is, and these are quite rare, these ones. It's one of the early Type 4 tapes, metallic, metal position. I love the box. This has been used. The problem with this tape is it doesn't have the extra detection holes that a real or more modern metal tape, such as this TDK MA110 metal position. I'm not going to erase this one just because I've got some logs on here. I used to do a lot of recording off the radio, log different stations, and I've got some album stuff that radio stations used to play an album at night, and I've got some stuff on here that I want to keep, so I'm not going to erase this one, but this one here, I got junk on here. I got just crap from the 80s. I think the tape was originally recorded, what's it say on here? It says it was originally recorded December 13th, 1984. So this would have had the 84 pop crap of the 1980s that we would just as soon forget. You know, artists like Madonna, ugh, George Michael, ugh. I can't believe I actually recorded that crap. But that's gonna go. But before I can actually do a recording on this, I'm gonna actually have to cut a little hole in here to allow the deck to detect it, and I'm going to do that by opening up the cassette and just cut a little slot here. I have to open up the shell though to do that. So let's do that. Let's make this old metallic tape compatible with a deck that uses automatic detection, because when this tape was recorded, it probably was never recorded correctly, because it would have been recorded in the high bias position, because I think all the decks I've ever owned have had auto detection. And that's probably why I ended up with this tape, because I think it was given to me because someone couldn't record on it. Because I would have never bought a 46-minute metallic tape for what those things cost. They were expensive. I know, this one here, I got a few of these ones. It cost me a bloody fortune. 110 minutes. Nice though. I used to use those just for logging stuff. So I'm going to open this cassette up. We're going to put the detection holes in this, so that I can try recording and we can see what this deck will deliver. And then we'll try it on the different types of tapes. I'll try it on Type 1 tape, Type 2 tape, Type 3 tape, and Type 4. And as I say, Type 3 were always a favorite of mine. I used these a lot. One, because I bought a bunch of them and I got a really good price on them. I bought them when Sony blew them out. When they discontinued them, I bought a bunch of them. I think I bought a case of, I'm going to say 100, but I got them for like $1 a piece. So, and I used to use them all the time. They always sounded great. Let's take care of this thing first. So to do this, I'm going to have to open the shell. Take the top off it, notch it, put it back in, flip it over so the reels go to the other side, and then notch the other side. I think that's the best solution, so that the deck can read it. I don't want to end up with tape spilling all over the place, so I'll just remove the top shell and cut a notch in it, kind of like that. I just use my little snips to do that. We'll put this slip sheet back on here. I did have to cut the camera there for a second because I didn't want any curse words going over the channel. They could get me in trouble with YouTube, because there's certainly was a few man words here as this freaking cassette shell was going back together. Okay, that goes back on like that, and then the top cover should be able to just go in like that, and then I can put the screws back in, and that should complete the transformation into a proper Type 4 cassette. Okay, as you can see, it now detects it as Type 4 metal. So let's bias this thing, and I can set each of these memories will actually bias for different tapes. So if I hit the record pause button here, and then I hit manual. Whoops, there we go. Now I can set my levels way up here. It's got calibration marks here. That looks like we're pretty close. I'll put that into memo 1 as well, right? So it's memo 1 for the metallic tape. We'll dig out a ferric tape as well and set that up. So now I have a standard normal bias tape, and we'll set this one up as well. Set it to 0. Right channel's not coming back quite as strong as I'd like it, but garbage tape. Okay, we'll save that one into memo 2 for standard. Memo 1 I've set for the ferrochrome tape. So let's just try some recordings here and see how this thing sounds. So we'll first start the recording on the standard tape. So I'm just going to play a track here. We'll set our levels up. So I'm going to set my levels up. So I'm going to peak right at 0 for my standard normal bias tape. Good enough. Okay. Let's start our recording up here. So here's our source, and I'll switch to the tape here. We'll look at our levels. There's our playback on the playback head. And so you hear this tape is not giving me back quite what I put into it. And I can change my bias to just the standard reference, and you'll hear a difference. See, the levels are a little lower. That's the factory preset reference. And this one is the bias that I set up for this specific tape. You can definitely see a difference in the levels on playback for this garbage tape. This is I mean, if you look at the surface of the tape, it's not. It doesn't look like the surface looks kind of a bit rippled. I don't know where this tape came from. Somebody gave it to me, but it's a Fuji DR series Type 1 crapola. Next, I'm going to take the good old ferrochrome that I had. This is an old tape. This should perform a little bit better than that Type 1. And remember, memo 1 is where I did it. And I'm not using any noise reduction. We have the noise reduction turned off for this test. So let's put this one into record. Listen to the highs on this. Again, our levels aren't quite coming back, but can push this tape a little more than the standard tape. I'm recording at peaks at plus 2, a little bit into plus 3, and I'm getting back to plus 2 here. So I'm getting back almost what I'm putting into it on this ferrochrome tape. It's good. I mean, for a normal bias type tape, it actually performs really well. Next, we will move over to a high bias tape. So let's grab the high bias and say this tape is certainly seen better days, and I've already set the levels up on this. On a high bias tape, I can push a little higher here. So let's push this one to plus 3 and record. Where are we here? Record. Here's our source, and here's our tape. Look at this. Source. I'm getting back pretty much everything I'm putting in plus 3. Let's see how high we can push this tape. We'll just play the same track again. So let's see how high we can push this. Can I push it to plus 5? Plus 5. Let's see what we get back. I'm getting back plus 3, perfect. Remember, we're not using any noise reduction at all. If I kick in my noise reduction, let's go to Dolby B. I gotta turn. This is my playback level. I can turn that down so I can talk over it. That's Dolby B, and we'll switch to Dolby C here. Again, our source. This is a good tape. DBX. Can't tell the difference. Beautiful. Source, tape. Beautiful. That's why I like this cassette deck. It has fantastic sound. Let's go to this Type 4 tape that I just modified so that I can actually utilize it on this machine here. And I've already calibrated it. We'll turn our noise reduction off. On this one, I'm going to really crank the crap out of it. We're going to go to like plus 5 because it's a metal tape, so we should get that back easily. Maybe even plus 7. Shall we push it to plus 7? Shall we push it to plus 7? There we go. We're going to push it to plus 7 and record. And this will, of course, it switches to tape monitor mode as soon as I hit record. Here's plus, we're recording plus 7. And we should be getting back pretty darn close to that on this tape. back to +5, no problem. So let's just bring our levels back a bit. Noise reduction, so Dolby B. Source and tape. Go to Dolby C. And then we'll do DVX as well. Now with DVX noise reduction, I can crank the crap out of this thing, and I can go probably to +10. Let's do that. +7. I'm getting back +7. So source +7. Playback +7. The beauty with DVX is there's no noise. Listen when there's silence here. No sound. No hiss. No nothing. It's beautiful. It just knocks the noise out completely. Of course, you have to, if you record with DVX, you have to play it back with DVX or it's not going to work. I'm just going to stop that because I know that track, even though that track is a royalty-free track, I know that particular song is going to pull a strike or copyright claim by Rick Hart because he put some words to it and released it with some words to it, and seems to make a claim every time. So we're gonna stop that one. But yeah, DVX, beautiful, beautiful. Now if I turn it off, of course, we probably won't get back quite as much level. What are we putting into it here? We're putting into +7. We're getting back +5. Metal reference says +5 is where you should be recording to. So we bring this back to +5 here. We'll get back +5. No problem. Let's go back to this other tape here. And I said this metal tape is very, very old. Even at that, it still performs really well. But I'm still very impressed with this beat up, old, chewed up tape. As you can see, it's got a scratch on it. This has been played a million times, this tape. It's probably all stretched. This is one that, you know, this is a very high mileage tape, as you can tell. It's been used a lot. This was used in a car deck. And we set our levels up to +3. Getting back the same type of levels as I put into it. So definitely the type 2 high bias and the metal tape definitely outperform the type 1 and the type 3 tapes. But anyway, that's my little experiment with my V850 deck. As I say, these were a fairly nice deck, and it does perform very well. We'll do another test with I've got a couple of other decks here, and we'll do another test with one of my other decks with the various different types of tapes and see how they perform as well. The other deck that I'm going to use, it's not a 3-head deck, but it's got all kinds of fancy bells and whistles. It was dubbed as one of the better of the 2-head decks that was out. It's a late model deck, and it's got all kinds of bells and whistles on it. Of course, I'm talking about a Pioneer CT70. We're going to look at it in another video when I'll do the same type of test with the same tapes, and we'll see how it performs. It is Dolby BNC, and it's also HX Pro and headroom extension with digital noise processing. That deck claims that they can completely remove the hiss from conventional tapes without using DBX, and we'll see how it performs using the same setup, using the same tapes. But that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you again in the next one real soon.